So before I begin, and I'm just going to start with a small story. Uh, uh, and I think we all of us believe this, right? So there's no, uh, none of us, either on this call or in a team, are alike. Meaning that we are all individuals. We're not automatons or machines or robots. So uh, what we started out with worxogo was with this fundamental premise, saying that every individual in a team is unique. They have uh, she or he has their own persona. They have their own way in which they get motivated to take action on a daily basis on their jobs. So when we looked at sales teams, we realized everything that exists in organizations today is a one size fits all. You look at a training process. If you are joining a new joining a new team, whether you've got 20 years of experience or 5, as long as you're doing the same task. So if you're selling a product, you go through that the same training process that you need to go through. Once that, during the point when you come into a team, into an organization. The second one is uh, when you look at during the time when an employee is productive within the organization as part of a team. You could be a high performer, someone in the middle, or not doing so well. And I know bell curves these days are not talked about too much, but if you look at a performance continuum, you will see people of all sorts. But if you look at the way they experience uh, their work on a day-to-day basis, it's the same. Everyone gets the same MIS. Everyone gets the same. I mean, yes, you have to follow the same process, but whether you're a superstar salesman or a consistent guy or someone not doing so well, you get the same kind of tools, pretty much same kind of feedback, and same kind of inputs from the organization, and in terms of how you can improve. So if I were to give you an example, and this was like I was saying, in a product, not talking specifically about sales, but if I take fitness as an example, uh, you would have folks who are marathoners. You would have folks who are the ones who run consistently. I know that is Tom Hiddleston in the middle, but for the time being, let's assume he's a consistent runner. And there are the rest of us, mostly people like me, who would, and that's me at 3 o'clock in at my job, or at work, or at home, where I'm trying to stay productive or stay active. So now, if I were to ask you this question, would you, for these three different kinds of people, would you give them the same data on running? So, for example, would you tell a marathoner saying, "Hey, you know what? The last marathon you ran, you took 200,000 steps." I mean, that's good information, that's good data, but does it help that guy to get better at what he or she is doing? Uh, do you tell a regular runner saying, "Hey, you know what? When you ran yesterday morning for your regular run, you ran at the speed of, or uh, you sped up and you slowed down at some point." Again, good information to have. Does it get him to be more consistent or get better or faster? Probably not. The the lazy guy, the one who doesn't really run, right? Do you go and tell them, like, look, you know what, when you walked at 4 kilometers per hour. If you run, you'll run at 6 kilometers. So the reason I'm bringing this point out is just to demonstrate, saying that in any team, like in the case of running or fitness, one size fits all doesn't work. So this is what got us started, and I'll come back to this example in a bit. But I just wanted to leave that image with you, saying that uh, one size fits all in organizations doesn't work, and there's been a lot of research and a lot of thought that's gone into this area. So right, starting from experience or a process mapping that Norman talked about many years ago. From that, experience mapping, saying how does an individual experience their work, or it could be a customer experiencing a product, whatever it is. Then BJ Fogg from Stanford talked about persuasive technology, which is how do you use technology to persuade people to do things. In Fogg's case, he was talking more about using it in e-commerce and online tools. Now, obviously, Fogg is not talking about for your own personal fitness goals and stuff like that. Then Kahneman came about. There was Daniel Pink and Simon who talked about design thinking. How do you build empathy for the user when you're designing a process? And Dan Ariely, Richard Thaler, and the likes, and Kahneman, brought in all of these inputs together into what is this body of work now, which is loosely called neuroeconomics. But what it essentially means is, as individuals, when we take a decision on a daily basis on what we do, what part of our brain, what neurons fire or what connections get made. So there's this entire thing around, the dopamine hit that we get when we're doing social media and stuff like that. That's an outcome of all the work that, Thaler, Rayleigh, Kahneman, etc. had done. So just to summarize, what I wanted to just highlight for you, and if you're really interested in this area, this book called The Nudge by Richard Thaler and Sunstein actually won the Nobel in 2018, which fundamentally talks about what you see below as the small text that's there, which says we are all not completely rational as far as decision making is concerned, and if we can be nudged along to which a nudge essentially just means, can I give you the right set of choices which leave the decision of what you have to do with the individual, but you're kind of gently guiding them along to the uh, right action that you should be taking. And that's, if you can use that irrationality of human beings and nudge them in the right way, you can get better outcomes. Now, this has research has been used. Was first used by the UK government when they set up a behavioral nudge unit. I think it was called the Behavioral Insights Team or some such. It was used for things like energy consumption. It got used for stuff like organ donation and stuff like that. So, how do you get the government to citizen interaction to be better and more productive? Now, globally, so Barack Obama, by the way, had based on that set up his own nudge unit uh, in 2008 or 2009, if I'm not, if I remember the year correctly, and so on and so forth. So it's really around. It's around 2018 when this persuasive technology or neuroeconomics and behavioral economics became central to how organizations started looking at how to drive productivity. And what this whole body is about, I'm just going to give you a little bit of more detail around what this means, what this research says, and I'm sure some of you have already heard about this. Oops. Is that all of us, when they talked about irrational, human beings are irrational in decision making, what they were essentially saying, and this is from the book, says that, there are two systems in our, that work at any given point of time: system one and system two. System two is data driven, system one is heuristics and pattern driven. Uh, and interestingly enough, it's not looking at a lot of data when it makes that decision. And I will also point you back to Freakonomics, which came out many years ago, I think a decade and a half ago, which talks about how your decision gets made, instantly by individuals. You look at someone, you like them, you don't like them. You're buying art, it corrects saying this is great. So it's pretty much all of that knowledge research is now distilled into what is currently being called system one and two. And it goes further and says, interestingly enough, 97% of all the decisions we make as an individual on a daily basis are system one based, which means, yes, there is data in front of us, but we don't necessarily make that choice. So as an example, that fitness example that, if you recall, I was talking about, uh, do I want to get fit? The 9 out of 10 people will say, yes, I'd probably like to be fitter. Do you know what it needs to get fit? Of course I do. So, you got to eat right, exercise regularly, sleep well. So these are So do I have the intent to improve? Yes. Do I have the data to improve? Yes. This is what I need to do. Do I actually do it? No, I don't. And that essentially boils down to this system one thinking, because I make a resolution on the new year saying, hey, what, this year I'm going to hit the gym 7 days out of 7, take up an annual membership and say I'm going to do it. By the 15th of January, I kind of seem to have tapered off and don't go as regularly. Why? Some days in the morning, don't feel like it, slept late, won't happen. Another day, it's too cold, don't feel like going out. The third day, hey, you know what? I need to buy those new shoes. So once I get those shoes, that's when I'm going to go, and so on and so forth. So there's always a gap between an intent, data, and action. That's what the system one and system two talks about. So, which says just by giving you this data or information will not make you take an action. What that means is, in the corporate world, yes, there is MIS, there are analytics tools, there is enough data around prospects, what CRMs, etc. There's enough and more data in a team, but do you really get your team to be as productive? uh, what neuroeconomics says is no. Just by having data, you do not solve for that problem, and this is how this translates into a work context. So if you're looking for a high performing team, you'd have these challenges of, are my team members consistent, is everyone firing on the you know firing and performing to the best of their ability consistently. Normally, invariably does not happen. You end up depending on a few people in your team who do well, and essentially there's a lot of time, management time, energy, cost, and effort that goes into just making sure people are productive. And that's how, by not focusing on system two of your team, your sales team, your individuals, we believe this is where the gap is. And it's over the last 6 years, as we've deployed our engine across 80,000 employees, we see that this indeed is a big driver of productivity, and this is a gap which most organizations have. So again, just coming back, the question for you: does your MIS or analytics or CRM systems that you have today, do they solve this problem? Do they personalize for different types of people in your team, in your sales teams? Do they give information at the right time to the right individual so that they can act on it? And three, most importantly, is the information given in a way which motivates me to take an action on it? So, as an example, if I'm a 50% sales achiever in my, uh, you know, in my team, and if my manager asks me, hey, you got 50% more to go, what are you doing? Will I really look at this MIS and say, hey, you know what, the product's too hard to sell, competition is too tough, our prices are not right, there's something wrong, we don't have enough features or whatever it is in the product. So invariably, and this is the question, right? So is just giving more data to your teams going to solve this problem of personalization and converting intent to action? So that's our belief, which is, like I said, you would have enough CRMs and analytics tools, which there is enough transaction data, customer data, next best action is there, analytics is there, all of that exists. But does it personalize and does it drive that action?